Fluke and Tate had been neighbors for almost a year, but had barely spoken to each other, except for the first day, when Fluke went over with his twin niece and nephew, Jamal and Jamila, to introduce himself as the new neighbor. Tate, however, simply gave them a disgusted glance before shutting the door in their faces. Fluke immediately thought he was rude and grumpy, and decided to avoid him. They often ran into each other at the nearby park, Tate walking his dog while Fluke took the twins to play. Tate always silently judged them whenever he saw them. He found the twins loud, chaotic, and dirty, wanting nothing to do with them. In truth, he just didn't like kids in general and thought all of them were messy. One day, while returning home from the park with the twins, Fluke spotted Tate leaving his porch and wondered why he had been there. It turned out Tate had just come to retrieve his dog, which had wandered over. When Fluke reached the door, he noticed a flyer for pet and babysitting services hanging on the knob. He instantly assumed it belonged to Tate, and was surprised that someone as grumpy as him worked as a sitter. Without much thought, he folded the flyer and slipped it into his pocket before heading inside. The next day, Fluke suddenly received a call from work about an urgent meeting. He had been working from home ever since he took in the twins after their mother, his sister, passed away during childbirth. Their parents were too old to care for them, so Fluke had stepped up. The twins were mischievous and hard to handle, but he had managed to raise them on his own. With no babysitter and no idea where to find one, Fluke panicked, until he remembered the flyer. Tate was cranky and didn't seem like someone who could take care of kids, but at that moment, Fluke had no choice. He called the number and to his relief, agreed to watch them. In a rush, Fluke packed everything the twins would need and hurried over to Tate's house, running late. He knocked impatiently, and the moment Tate opened the door, he pushed the twins toward him. "Thank you so much for agreeing on such short notice," Fluke said, quickly stuffing the agreed-upon payment, plus a little extra into Tate's hand. Knowing how troublesome the twins could be, "I'll text you everything you need to know." Before Tate could even process what was happening, Fluke had already bolted off, leaving him standing there, dumbfounded. Tate stared down at the twins with clear displeasure. "You better follow your dad," stepping away from them with a repulsed expression, after stuffing the money Fluke had given him into their backpack. Jamila tilted her head. "Fluke said you're going to take care of us," Tate scoffed. "I am absolutely not. Walk out on your own, I don't want to touch you. And wipe those snots." The twins just wiped their noses with the backs of their hands, and then smeared it on their clothes. Tate grimaced in pure disgust. Before he could say anything else, the twins suddenly bolted inside, climbing onto his couch. He immediately yelled for them to get off. The twins ignored him entirely, pulling out cookies from their bags and munching away, leaving a mess of crumbs everywhere. Tate's eye twitched. He immediately reached for his phone to call Fluke and demand he come back to get his kids, but then he realized he didn't even have Fluke's number. Groaning in frustration, he watched as the twins made a mess in his living room. He walked to the kitchen, washed his hands, then poured himself a glass of ice-cold water, trying to calm himself down. Even though he hated kids, he couldn't just throw them out. He sat at the dining table, staring into the distance, wondering how his life had taken such a terrible turn as the twins chased each other around, screaming at the top of their lungs, knocking over whatever was in their way. Every time Tate yelled at them to stop, they would pause for a second, only to resume the chaos shortly after. Tired and already feeling a headache forming, Tate gave up and retreated to his room, flopping onto his bed. He could still hear the twins' shrill voices through the walls, and buried his head under his pillow. After what felt like an eternity, just as he was starting to drift into his own thoughts, he suddenly felt a cold, moist, tiny hand touch him. Instinctively, he flinched and turned to see Jamal standing beside his bed. "What do you want?" Tate asked, scooting away in disgust. Jamal blinked. "I need to use the washroom." Tate sighed. "Number 1 or 2? I don't know," Jamal answered. "But I want to poo." Tate narrowed his eyes. "I hope you can wipe your own ass." Jamal shook his head. "Fluke always helps me." "Aren't you old enough to do it yourself?" "I'm only 3.5. Tate scoffed. "I started wiping my own butt the moment I learned to walk." At 6 months old, Jamal just stared at him, clearly uninterested. Tate crossed his arms. "So who's going to help you wipe your butt now?" Jamal pointed at him without hesitation. Tate chuckled in disbelief. "Yeah, that's not happening. You better hold it in." Jamal clutched his tummy. "I don't want to poo anymore." Tate exhaled in relief. "Thank God." But then Jamal added, "I want to pee." Tate groaned. "Can you leave me alone? The washroom is out the door, on your left. Just go." Jamal started doing a frantic pee-pee dance. I can't hold it in. If I walk, I'll pee on myself. Tate shot up from the bed in alarm. He definitely did not want pee on his bedroom carpet. Without thinking, he immediately scooped Jamal up and rushed him to the bathroom. As Tate was about to leave the bathroom, Jamal tugged on his sleeve. Can you help unzip my pants? Tate was already at his limit. With a deep sigh, he quickly helped the kid and walked out, waiting by the door. A few moments later, Jamal emerged. Tate instinctively glanced inside the bathroom. There was pee all over the toilet seat and even some on the floor. He shot Jamal a fierce glare. Jamal's eyes welled up with tears. I couldn't reach inside the bowl, and I couldn't hold it in. Tate closed his eyes, inhaled sharply, and exhaled in pure resignation. Just wash your hands and get out. Jamal sniffled and wiped his tears and snot with his hand. The sink is too high. I can't reach. Tate clenched his jaw, reluctantly picking him up again to help him wash his hands. The moment Jamal ran off to join Jamila, the noise resumed. Then, suddenly silence. Tate sighed in relief. Finally, some peace and quiet. Then he got suspicious. He quickly stepped out to check on the twins only to find them coloring on his wall. At this point, he wasn't even surprised anymore. Before he could explode, the doorbell rang. Tate rushed to the door, praying it was Fluke. He swung it open, and sure enough, there he was. Tate let out a massive sigh of relief, which immediately turned into anger. Fluke had already figured out Tate wasn't the actual babysitter when the real sitter texted him back after he'd sent the instructions for the twins. Realizing his mistake, he had rushed through his work and hurried home. Before Tate could even start yelling, Fluke launched into a series of frantic apologies. Tate just groaned, exhausted. Just take these little devils out of here. Seeing Fluke, the twins squealed in excitement and ran to him. Fluke froze, horrified when he saw the mess they had made. I'm so sorry, Fluke said, utterly embarrassed. He immediately made the twins apologize too. Fluke offered to clean up and fix the wall, but Tate waved him off. Just get them out. Fluke apologized again before dragging the twins home, scolding them the entire way. The next day was the weekend. Fluke baked cookies with the twins and took some over to Tate's as another apology. Tate rejected as saying he just wanted them away from him. Disheartened, Fluke turned to leave, until a new voice chimed in from behind. If he doesn't want it, can I have it? Fluke turned to see a young man standing there, smiling. Sure, Fluke said, handing him the cookies, confused about where this guy had come from. The young man waved enthusiastically at the twins. Then, turning back to Fluke, he grinned. I'm Paxton. I live here. Tate frowned. Since when? Paxton replied. Since today. I already told you I'm not taking you in. Tate grumbled. It's just for a few weeks. Paxton whined. Do you really want to see your only brother sleeping on the streets? Tate crossed his arms. I don't care. Paxton ignored him and turned back to Fluke. If you ever need a babysitter for these little angels, just reach out to me. I'm not expensive. I love kids. I live right next door. And, well, I'm broke and really need a job. He really did need a babysitter now, as due to some issues at work, he could no longer work from home. He handed Fluke his number with an exaggeratedly hopeful look. Fluke hesitated, glancing at Tate, who was glaring daggers at them. I do need one, but I don't think. Before he could finish, Paxton grabbed his hands, batting his eyes like a desperate puppy. Please? Fluke sighed, unable to refuse. Paxton seemed nice, and he was right next door, which was convenient. Besides, the sitter from the flyer had just informed him that he wouldn't be babysitting anymore, since he landed an office job. At least this saved him the stress of finding another babysitter. Meanwhile, Tate rolled his eyes, realizing with dread that he would now be dealing with not only his annoying brother, but also those chaotic twins almost every day. Paxton and Fluke discussed the job, and Paxton played with the twins, who already loved him, for a while before parting ways. Seeing them get along so well, Fluke felt a little more at ease. Maybe this wasn't such a bad idea after all. On Monday morning, Fluke nervously sent the twins over. Thankfully, it was Paxton who opened the door, grinning as he excitedly welcomed them in. As soon as Fluke left, Tate appeared. Keep this place quiet, neat, and don't break or touch anything, or I'm kicking all of you out. Paxton mimicked him as soon as he turned, making the twins giggle. Tate shot them a look before heading back to his room. At first, he found their presence annoying, but over time, he got used to them, maybe even liked having them around. He'd step out of his room pretending to do something just to watch them as they played with Paxton. Sometimes, he even tried to subtly join in, but the moment they noticed him, they'd stop and stare. he'd catch himself smiling and immediately wipe it off his face. Maybe he didn't hate kids as much as he thought. One afternoon, Tate went out to feed the dogs and found Paxton napping on the floor. The twins were nowhere in sight. That's when he saw the open cage, with the twins next to it. The dog was gone. His voice turned sharp. "Did you open the cage?" The twins immediately burst into tears. Instead of answering, Tate sighed in frustration and ran out to look for the dogs. After hours of searching, he finally found his dog and returned home, just as Fluke arrived to pick up the twins. Still angry, Tate walked up to him. "Is this how you're raising your kids?" Fluke looked concerned. "What did they do?" Tate scoffed. "What didn't they do? If you knew you weren't capable of taking care of kids, why have them? Now they're just a nuisance to everyone else." He stopped mid-sentence, realizing too late what he had just said. Fluke's expression crumbled. His eyes filled with tears as he lowered his gaze. "I'm really sorry. Whatever they did, I apologize. I'll make sure we won't ever bother you anymore." He turned to leave, guiding the twins away, wondering if he really was doing a bad job raising them. Tate's chest tightened. He wanted to say something, to take it back, but nothing came out. Then he turned and met disappointed Paxton's stare. Tate huffed. "What?" Paxton crossed his arms. "You know that was messed up, right? You don't even know anything about him." Tate frowned. "And what do you know about him?" Paxton exhaled sharply, then told him about how his sister passed away during childbirth, and how Fluke stepped up and has been raising the twins alone ever since. Tate froze, feeling even more guilty. He then asked Paxton, when he got so close to Fluke, for him to open up to him about that. "Maybe if you weren't such a grumpy ass, people would actually like you, and maybe open up to you," Paxton said before walking off. That night, Tate tossed and turned. His phone buzzed, a text from Paxton. "I know guilt is eating you up right now. Here's Fluke's number if you want to apologize." Tate typed an apology, deleted it, typed again, deleted it. Eventually, he gave up. Maybe he'd be able to apologize in person. The next morning, Tate waited by the door, but Fluke never showed up. Paxton passed by, heading out. "You're not babysitting today?" Tate asked. "I am. I'm going to Fluke's place," Paxton replied. Tate frowned. "So, you're not babysitting here anymore?" Paxton shrugged. "Yeah, just like you wanted, and what I should have done from the beginning." In the following days, Tate's house was back to the peaceful quiet he had always wanted, but he no longer liked it. He always found himself staring at his phone, wanting to text Fluke an apology. On weekends, when Fluke took the twins to the park, Tate would coincidentally take his dog for a walk at the same time, hoping to get to talk to him. But Fluke always made sure to keep his distance with the twins, making it clear he was avoiding Tate. One day, while Paxton was babysitting, his parents called. They had found out he had dropped out of school and ordered him to come home immediately. Paxton didn't want to leave the twins with Tate, knowing Fluke wouldn't like it, but he had no other choice. Apologizing in advance, he left them with Tate and informed Fluke. Tate was ecstatic when Paxton brought the twins over. He was expecting them to run around and play like usual, but instead, they just sat quietly, coloring in a book. He tried to get them to play with him, but they ignored him. They were still mad at him for making Fluke cry. When Tate stepped away to his room for a moment, Jamal and Jamila took out a bottle of oil they had secretly packed from home and poured it in front of Tate's door. Then, they went back to coloring, waiting for him to come out and slip. As expected, Tate stepped out and immediately slipped, falling hard onto the floor. He was still processing what had happened when the twins stood over him, a cardboard sword pointed at his neck. "That's for making Fluke cry. If you make Fluke cry again, we'll cut you with our sword." Instead of getting mad, Tate just smiled. He promised never to make Fluke cry again, and the twins even made him pinky swear. "Are we cool now?" Tate asked. The twins flatly replied, "No," and went back to coloring, leaving him lying on the floor. Tate tried to get up but couldn't. After several failed attempts, he accepted his fate, hoping Paxton would return soon to help him up. After a while, there was a knock on the door. Tate realized it was probably Fluke because Paxton would never knock. He called out for him to come in, since the door was unlocked. Fluke walked in and immediately spotted Tate on the floor. His eyes darted to the oil stain and then to the twins, who gave a sheepish smile. He sighed before helping Tate up, guiding him to the couch. Fluke accidentally dropped him onto the couch a little too hard, making him wince. Tate groaned. "Is this your way of getting back at me?" Fluke's eyes widened in panic. No, I didn't mean to," he stammered. Tate chuckled. "I was just kidding." Fluke blinked in surprise. It was the first time he had ever seen Tate joke, or even smile. Then, Tate's expression turned serious as he mumbled, "I'm sorry." Fluke thought he misheard. "Huh?" Tate repeated, "I'm sorry. Sorry for what I said the other day. And for being a jerk in general. I didn't mean any of what I said. The twins are lovely, and you're doing an amazing job raising them." Fluke was stunned. He never expected to hear this from Tate. Instead of responding, he just asked if Tate had any pain relief ointment. Tate pointed him to where it was. Fluke rolled up Tate's shirt and massaged the ointment into his back and arm. As he worked, Tate wondered if Fluke had forgiven him. When Fluke finished and cleaned up the oiled floor, about to leave with the kids, he noticed Tate struggling to get up. "Do you need anything?" Fluke asked. Tate hesitated before admitting, "I wanted to get some water." Fluke made him lie back down and fetched him a glass. "Anything else?" Fluke asked. Tate hesitated again before muttering he wanted to change his oil-stained shirt. Fluke went Tate's room to grab him a fresh shirt. He turned away to give him privacy to change, but when he glanced back, Tate was still just holding the shirt. Tate sheepishly admitted, "I need a little help." Fluke moved closer to help Tate into the new shirt, looking away. Just as he finished, he heard a low growl. He turned to see Tate clutching his stomach in embarrassment. Fluke muffled a laugh. "Do you mind if I use your kitchen?" Tate nodded. "Anything you don't eat?" "I eat everything," Tate replied, realizing Fluke was about to cook for him, even though he was a picky eater. Fluke quickly whipped up a meal and brought it over. Tate struggled to eat since he had fallen on his right hand. Fluke tried to ignore it, but eventually sighed and took the bowl. "Let me help." Tate, too hungry to argue, and really needing help, let him. "Sorry for bothering you," he muttered. Fluke smiled. "It's okay. I do this all the time." After an awkward feeding session, Fluke cleaned up and offered to stay until Paxton got back in case Tate needed anything else. They sat in awkward silence, not having anything to talk about. The twins had already fallen asleep, and after a while, so did they. The next morning, Paxton barged in, startling everyone awake. Seeing Fluke had slept over, he asked, "Did I miss something?" Fluke jolted up, immediately checking the time, thinking he was late for work, only to remember it was a public holiday. He sighed in relief, then quickly checked on Tate before gathering the twins to leave. For the next few days, Fluke stopped by regularly to check on Tate, since it was technically the twins' fault he had fallen. Tate found himself enjoying the attention so much that he pretended to still be hurt, even though he had already healed. Paxton exposed him. "I saw you walking and using your hand perfectly fine this morning." Tate waved him off. "Were you sleepwalking again?" Paxton blinked. "I sleepwalk?" Tate nodded, keeping up the lie. "Didn't you know? One time, you almost jumped out the window, but I saved you just in time." Paxton, completely believing him, rushed over to hug Tate. "Thank you. I love you." Tate pushed him away with a disgusted look, only to turn back to Fluke with a smile. In the following days, it seemed like he and Fluke were on better terms. Fluke greeted him with a smile every time they crossed paths, and even brought over pastries whenever he baked with the twins, which he now readily accepted. As for the twins, all it took was Tate making them a new and cooler cardboard sword, and they had already declared him their best friend. Tate found himself looking forward to seeing Fluke, feeling an unexpected warmth every time Fluke smiled or spoke to him. He wasn't sure if it was lingering guilt or if he was actually starting to feel something. One night, as the twins were watching their favorite show before bed, the TV suddenly shut off. Fluke tried everything, but it wouldn't turn back on. The twins, desperate not to miss anything, immediately thought of Tate's TV and started whining to Fluke about going over to his place. Fluke shook his head. "You shouldn't bother him." Before he could finish, the twins had already bolted out the door, racing to Tate's place. Fluke hurried after them, but by the time he caught up, they had already knocked. As he tried to pull them away, Tate opened the door. The twins quickly explained the situation, while Fluke sighed, telling Tate to just ignore them. But Tate only shrugged. No, it's fine. I love having them around. They can come over whenever they want." Fluke was taken aback. This was the same Tate who used to dislike them. Still surprised, he quickly grabbed his laptop and returned to Tate's place, settling at the dining table to continue working while keeping an eye on the twins. Tate kept hovering around, pretending to be busy with something. He noticed Fluke struggling with a section of his work, writing code, something he was familiar with. "Need help?" he asked casually. Fluke turned to him, surprised. "You can really help?" Tate nodded, pulled a chair next to him, and took over the laptop. He was so close that their cheeks kept brushing. Tate started feeling hot and tingly in his seat, his heart racing. As he finished and turned to face Fluke, Fluke also turned at the same time, leaving their faces just inches apart. Tate felt breathless, his knees weak, but Fluke remained oblivious, still buzzing with excitement. "Thanks. How are you so good at it?" As they talked, they realized they worked in the same field, though Tate was still fortunate enough to work from home. Their conversation stretched longer than expected, neither noticing the time, until they saw the twins fast asleep. When it was time for Fluke to leave, he attempted to carry both twins at once, but struggled. Tate stepped in, lifting Jamal while Fluke carried Jamila back to his place. Once inside, they carefully laid the twins down. Tate even wiped a bit of snot from Jamal's nose, surprising Fluke. Now, it was Tate's turn to leave, but for some reason, he wasn't quite ready to go. Searching for an excuse to stay longer, he offered, "Let me check what's wrong with your TV." It turned out to be just a minor cable issue, which he fixed in no time, only to regret how quickly he'd done it since now he really had to leave. Fluke walked him to the door, but instead of watching where he was going, Tate's eyes were still on Fluke. He misstepped, almost falling, but Fluke caught him just in time, pulling him in. Their lips grazed. Tate found himself in Fluke's embrace, both of them frozen, eyes wide. His lips went cold, his face flushed. Neither moved for a moment, until Paxton's voice interrupted. "Am I interrupting something?" Tate rolled his eyes in annoyance, and he and Fluke quickly separated. He turned to glare at Paxton, while Fluke smiled nervously, pretending he wasn't flustered. "Good night," Fluke said. Tate, still visibly flustered, mumbled, "Good morning." Fluke blinked. "Huh?" Then realization hit. "I mean good night." A soft chuckle escaped them both. Yet, neither moved. Even after saying good night, they just stood there, staring at each other. Paxton, thoroughly enjoying the scene from the sidelines, smirked. Fluke finally spoke. "I'm closing the door." Tate nodded but remained standing. Fluke slowly shut the door, their gazes lingering until the very last moment when they could no longer see each other. The second the door clicked shut, Paxton threw an arm around Tate's shoulder, making teasing noises. "What's going on between you two?" Tate shoved him off and hurried inside, locking the door behind him. As soon as Tate's head hit the pillow, he found himself reminiscing about the moment, his fingers brushing over his lips, a shy smile creeping onto his face. The next morning, as Tate made coffee, Paxton strolled up to him and asked, "Do you want a kiss?" Tate's mind immediately flashed back to last night's accidental kiss. He snapped out of it and scowled. "Ew, I don't want a kiss from you." Paxton smirked and opened his palm, revealing a kiss chocolate candy. "I meant this." Tate rolled his eyes. "No." He turned to walk away. Paxton called after him, "I got it from Fluke." Tate paused mid-step. Then, without a word, he reversed back and took the candy, a small smile tugging at his lips. Paxton gave him a knowing smile. Tate narrowed his eyes. "What's with that smile?" Paxton shrugged. "Nothing." Learning that they were in the same working field, Tate and Fluke started talking and texting about work. Soon, their conversations shifted to random topics and personal things. They realized they had a lot in common and eventually grew closer and more comfortable with each other. One night, while scrolling through videos, Fluke came across a clip of a grumpy-looking cat. Thinking it resembled Tate, he sent it to him. As always, Tate opened Fluke's message the moment it popped up. Just as Fluke considered withdrawing the video, Tate's reply came in. "Are you saying I look like this cat?" Fluke replied, "Yeah, you always had that look, but now you look like this," attaching a picture of a kitten with a bow on its head. "Cute?" Tate asked. "You can say that." Tate put his phone over his face, smiling uncontrollably. He never imagined he'd be this happy about someone calling him cute. Soon, it was time for Paxton to return to school. He had agreed with his parents to go back, on the condition that he could finally pursue the program he wanted, instead of the one they had forced on him. Going back meant he could no longer babysit the twins. Fluke thought it was best for them to start school anyway, so he decided to enroll them. Even so, he worried about not making it home in time to pick them up. Without hesitation, Tate volunteered. Fluke eyed him skeptically. "Are you sure?" Tate nodded. Fluke was skeptical, but thanked him, promising to try his best to make it home on time, so the twins wouldn't bother him too much. On the twins' first day of school, Fluke took a leave from work to take them himself. He got emotional, tearing up and taking a million pictures of them in their uniforms, almost making them late. When they arrived, he held their hands tightly, bracing himself for a tearful goodbye. He had seen plenty of first-day scenes where kids clung to their parents, wailing at the thought of being left behind. But the moment Jamal and Jamila stepped through the school gates, their faces lit up with excitement. Before Fluke could even say goodbye, they had already sprinted toward the entrance. Fluke stood there, frozen and disappointed. They didn't even look back. Not a single tear, not a hesitant glance. He let out a slow, defeated sigh, watching them disappear into the building before driving back home. Within minutes of being alone, he was already bored. Soon, he found himself knocking on Tate's door. Tate opened it. "Are you busy?" Fluke asked. Tate shook his head and ushered him in. Seeing Fluke's sulky expression, he asked, "What's wrong?" Fluke sighed. The twins ran into their class without even looking back. "I thought they'd at least cry or hold on to me, not want to go." Tate asked, "Isn't that a good thing?" "It is, but..." Fluke trailed off before sighing again. "I just can't explain it." He looked like he was about to cry. Tate let out a soft chuckle and gently pulled Fluke in, resting his head against his chest while caressing his hair. "I get it." Fluke slowly wrapped his arms around Tate's waist, hugging him back. Meanwhile, Tate prayed Fluke wouldn't hear his heart racing. Jamal and Jamila quickly adjusted to school and were always excited to go. Whenever Fluke ran late, Tate picked them up and watched over them until he got home. One day, while picking up the twins from school, Tate saw Jamila walking out with a bunch of roses. He asked where she got them, and she happily replied. Almost all the boys in their class asked her to be their Valentine, and she liked all of them, so she said yes to everyone. That's when Tate realized Valentine's Day was coming up. He never kept track of it since he had never been in a relationship. Jamal then asked, "Can you take me to buy flowers too? I want to give it to a girl I like in class." Tate agreed and took them to a flower shop, even buying the flowers for Jamal since he had no money. While there, he thought about getting some for Fluke, but didn't know his favorite flower. He asked the twins, but they didn't know either. Just then, Paxton called. "If you're thinking about buying flowers for Fluke, his favorite is forget-me-nots." Tate frowned. "How did you know I was thinking about that?" "Telepathy." Tate narrowed his eyes. "Wait, why do you know his favorite flower?" "Because he told me." "Why would he tell you?" Paxton simply said, "We're closer than you think." Jealous and annoyed, Tate hung up and bought the forget-me-nots, already thinking about how to give them to Fluke. Later, when Fluke came to pick up the twins, he was also surprised to see Jamila holding a bunch of roses. She wasn't letting go of them. He asked where she got them, and she told him. That's when Fluke also realized he had completely forgotten about Valentine's Day. Since having the twins, he hadn't been in a relationship, so he stopped looking forward to it. Tate, who had been hiding the flowers behind his back, finally brought them out and handed them to Fluke. "For me?" Fluke asked, surprised. Tate nodded. Fluke's face lit up. "They're so pretty. Thank you. How did you know they're my favorite?" Tate sighed. "I hate to say it, but Paxton told me. I hate learning things about you from him. I want to know everything about you from you. Will you let me?" Fluke smiled and nodded. Then, as he admired the flowers, he asked, "So, is there a reason you got me these?" Tate rubbed his neck. Actually, he hesitated before asking, "Would you like to go on a date with me on Valentine's Day?" Fluke froze for a moment, then glanced at the twins. Noticing Tate quickly said, "They can come along if you're worried about them." Fluke shook his head. "No, I'll drop them off at their grandparents'. Just a day with them wouldn't hurt, and besides, they haven't seen each other in a while." Tate bit his lip. "So, we have a date?" Fluke nodded, a shy smile playing on his lips. Tate tried to look cool. "Okay then, see you on Valentine's Day." Fluke chuckled. "We'll still see each other tomorrow." Tate blinked, realizing, right. After saying goodbye, Fluke left with the kids. The moment they were gone, Tate let all his excitement out. He turned on What Is Love by Twice, blasting it as he sang and danced excitedly. What he didn't realize was that Fluke had come back because he forgot his bag. Fluke stood at the door, stunned, then sneakily took a video. When Tate turned and saw him, he froze in embarrassment. Fluke giggled, grabbing his bag. "Don't mind me, you can continue." Tate tried to play it cool and kept dancing like he didn't care, but the second Fluke left, he collapsed to the floor, completely overwhelmed with embarrassment. That night, after putting the twins to bed, Fluke pulled out his phone and kept watching the video he took of Tate, laughing. He couldn't help but text, "I love your taste in music, and you dance really well." Tate replied instantly with a sticker of an embarrassed cat. They ended up chatting late into the night, planning their date. On Valentine's Day, first thing in the morning, Fluke drove the twins to their grandparents before returning home to get ready for his date. Tate, on the other hand, had been obsessing over the perfect outfit ever since Fluke agreed to go out with him. He even researched first date etiquette, going over all the do's and don'ts. By evening, both were ready. Tate was nervous, yet excited. He stepped out first, and Fluke followed shortly after. As they walked toward each other, Tate smiled and said, "You look amazing," handing Fluke another of his favorite flowers. Fluke took them with a smile. "Thank you. You look good too." They walked hand in hand to Tate's car and drove off to their date, a romantic candlelit dinner in a garden filled with forget-me-nots. The evening was perfect, just as Tate had imagined. After the date, Tate walked Fluke to his door. They bid each other goodnight, but as Fluke took a step inside, he suddenly turned back. "Do you want to come in?" he asked. Tate blinked, caught off guard. "Huh?" Fluke continued. "This is the first time in a long while that I've had an entire day to myself without worrying about the kids. I don't want to end it just yet. I want to make the most of it." Tate swallowed, his mind racing with all the possible things that could happen if he stepped inside. Before he could overthink it, Fluke just took his hand and led him in. He grabbed a bottle of wine, and the two settled on the floor between the couch and the center table, enjoying the quiet night together. Fluke asked if Tate drank, and when Tate nodded, he poured them both a glass. Without hesitation, Tate downed his entire drink in one go. Fluke teased, "Were you that thirsty?" Tate wiped his lips, his face already turning red from a mix of nervousness and excitement. "I guess." Fluke chuckled, reaching out to touch Tate's cheek. "Are you drunk already? You look like a tomato." Tate shivered under Fluke's touch, and suddenly, Fluke froze as well. Their eyes met, the air between them growing heavy. Fluke's gaze flickered down to Tate's lips. Tate swallowed hard. Slowly, they leaned in, brushing their lips together once before their eyes locked again. This time, they kissed deeper, more intense, as if they had been waiting for this moment. When they finally parted, their lips were red and wet, their breaths uneven. Foreheads pressed together, Tate asked in a low voice, "Would it be too early to ask you to be my boyfriend?" Fluke smiled. "Aren't we skipping an important step?" Tate blinked, thinking for a second before he figured. Without hesitation, he said, "I've fallen in love with you. I love you." Fluke stared at him, his expression unreadable. Tate felt his heart race with anxiety as he waited for a response. Fluke smiled softly. "I think I've fallen in love with you too." Tate's face lit up. "So you agree to start a relationship with me and be my boyfriend?" Fluke nodded. Relief washed over Tate, and he couldn't stop himself from smiling as he pulled Fluke into an embrace. When they pulled away, their eyes locked again, and they leaned in for another kiss. As their lips moved together, Tate felt Fluke's hand trail up his thigh, almost touching his crotch. He flinched, breaking the kiss. Fluke immediately pulled back. "I'm sorry," he said innocently. "I haven't been this intimate with anyone in a while. I got a little carried away." Tate swallowed, his heart pounding. Was all he managed. Fluke started to get up. "Maybe we should call it a night." Tate grabbed his wrist, stopping him, his eyes locked on Fluke's lips. Before kissing him with renewed hunger, he trailed kisses from Fluke's lips to his cheek, earlobe, then down to his neck before returning to his lips. Fluke shifted onto the couch, and Tate followed without breaking the kiss. Clothes were shed, and the night ended with them tangled up in each other. The next morning, Tate woke up first, his arm numb from Fluke using it as a pillow all night. But the discomfort vanished when he looked down at Fluke, peacefully sleeping beside him. He still couldn't believe they were boyfriends now. Smiling, Tate leaned in, leaving soft kisses on Fluke's face, careful not to wake him. Fluke, already awake, pretended to stay asleep, savoring the moment, until his phone rang loudly, making him open his eyes, slightly annoyed. He mumbled for Tate to pass him the phone. Tate handed it to him, and Fluke answered, sighing when he heard his parents asking him to come pick up the twins, because they can't handle them anymore. Fluke groaned, burying his face against Tate's chest. "I just want to stay like this all day." Tate chuckled, pulling him closer. "Me too. Just 5 more minutes. Or hours." They both laughed softly, nuzzling into each other, brushing their noses and lips together, before closing their eyes to rest a little longer.